Welcome to the World of Warcraft Arena World Championship, where 8 of the world's top teams will battle for cash prizes and a chance to be crowned the best of the best. Europe, China, APAC, and the Americas have all selected their teams to represent them here in Burbank, California. These 8 teams have proven they have what it takes to make it this far, but will they be able to bring down their rivals and represent their regions on the BlizzCon stage? There, they'll battle it out for a share of the $250,000 prize pool and the ultimate bragging rights of being crowned the 2015 World of Warcraft Arena Champions. Join us for every kick, every polymorph, and every glorious moment of combat the arena can handle as the World of Warcraft Arena Championships begin at BlizzCon opening week.
Hello and welcome to the World of Warcraft Arena World Championships. I'm Jackson Bajira Blighton, and we are live in Burbank for BlizzCon opening week. Now guys, we have the best 8 teams in the world today competing for their share of a $250,000 prize pool and the right to play on the BlizzCon stage. Our teams are, starting with North America, Cloud9, Follow Esports, and Tempo Storm. From Korea, qualifying through the Asian Pacific Regional, Do It For Fun. Our Chinese team, Original Gangstarr. And from Europe, SK Gaming, Skillcapped EU, and Solari Gaming. Now these guys have competed in tournaments, qualifiers, and regionals all summer to get to this stage here today, so you gotta expect the absolute best of the best that World of Warcraft Arena has to offer. And to meet the guys who are gonna be bringing those games to you play-by-play live, let's throw it over to the casters and meet the guys.
Thanks so much, Bajira. It is amazing to be here at BlizzCon opening week with all of these amazing games we're going to have lined up today. My name is Josh Allen, aka Lore, joined here at the caster desk by my good friends Jared Colston, aka VHEL, and Sid Compton, aka Supatees. Guys, it's the opening week leading into BlizzCon next week. How you guys feeling?
I am feeling great, man. I am so hyped up. The magnitude of this tournament is massive. These are the best teams from across the globe battling it out for first place to be the champion of BlizzCon.
I am so excited. Again, I feel like I've been saying this throughout the whole summer, but every tournament has been getting better and better and better. And now we're down to the final 8 teams trying to find out who's going to be able to play on stage at BlizzCon. I'm so excited for this tournament.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, we can go ahead and take a look at the brackets really quick because we do have those available just to get through here real quickly for you guys. This is going to be Group A. The first game we're going to see today actually is going to be SK Gaming versus Original Gangstarr. Later on, we will have Tempo Storm versus Solari Gaming. Again, that is Group A. And as they advance through that, of course, there will be an upper and lower bracket in each one of these groups. Looking at Group B now, we have Cloud9 versus Do It For Fun. And then later on, we will have Skillcapped EU versus Follow Esports.
That Group B is kind of scary. You know, if you're one of the teams in that group, you know that there's so much talent in that Group B. I'm so excited for those games.
Yeah. And even all the other teams that we've been seeing as well, like the Group A is nothing to sneeze at.
Oh, yeah.
That Original Gangstarr, the team from China, they are looking really, really strong. So I'm really excited to see those matches play out as well.
Yeah, and we can take a second to look at the rules for today. So the first match of every series is going to be a blind pick. The teams don't know what comps, they don't know what players. We're allowing 4 players on a team in this tournament, so it's blind pick through the first map. After that, the losing team will then select a map. The winning team will then select their composition. Following that, the losing team will finally lock in their final composition during the draft stages. The initial stages of this tournament are going to be best of 3 format, so it's very cutthroat. It's not going to be best of 5 until we actually make it to BlizzCon, and 2 teams are going to be eliminated through these next 2 days.
Yeah, and we have added a 4th player to all the rosters. A team can take advantage of that. Most of them have, but we do have a couple teams that are just sticking to their main 3 players. So it's something new we have this year for these Blizzard tournaments.
Yeah, and it's been really interesting to see how that's added a whole lot of versatility to every single team as well. Just having that ability to say, you know what, RMD, it's a good comp, but maybe not our best choice going into this matchup. We can switch over to a Shatter comp or switch over to a Turbo Cleave or something like that. It's been really, really cool to see just the extra sort of comp diversity that ends up happening instead of every team trying to pick that one best composition that they think will take them all the way through.
Yeah, it's really cool to have all the regions come together as well, specifically from APAC and China. They're favoring the Warlock compositions. Even after getting nerfed, they're still sticking to them, and I've gotten the opportunity to watch these teams practice endlessly over the past couple of days here in Burbank, and every time they face off against each other, it's a different victor. It's almost so hard to call it. I mean, I would predict possibly an SK Gaming in the finals there. Their Turbo Cleave has been dominating through the European region, and now they're looking to strut their stuff in America, but I would expect SK Gaming. Who do you think else is going to be their opponent?
I don't know, SK Gaming, it is definitely one of the teams that I would expect to do really well. But, you know, we got to say that the Korean team is looking so well. Watching them practice and play, I'm excited to see. It's almost anyone's tournament at this point. You know, we really haven't, even when we're watching them practice, there isn't that one team that stands out as like the really confident, really dominant team. So we're going to have to see through these games.
Yep. And of course, before we continue on any further talking about these upcoming matches, we do have one more introduction to make. So we're going to send it over back to Jackson at the analyst station.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the analyst station. I am joined here by Elliot Venruki Venzel, who himself has a lot of experience as a player in these tournaments and has done a little bit of casting as well. And that's what you're here today to do as well. You know, you got to be excited for these games today.
Yeah, thanks for that introduction, Jackson. I am really excited for these games today. I've had the opportunity to follow these guys through the North American and the European regionals and actually watch them play. It's going to be great today to see them all come together and really see what the best region is. And these guys have come here today to compete for a lot of prize money, over exactly $250,000 worth of prizes. First place is going to be walking away with that $120,000, as well as the title of BlizzCon champion.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a storyline to tell with that NA versus EU rivalry. But one of the things that's really interesting to me is that within those regions, there's some pretty fierce rivalries. For example, the Cloud9 and Tempo Storm rivalry. And similarly over on EU, the Skill Cap versus SK Gaming rivalry. So we have a lot of really exciting stories to tell. And as the casters were mentioning, there's some dark horse candidates here. The two Asian teams, which are, you know, fairly unknown to a lot of the teams before, but in the practice rounds have been taking it to them. So we might have some upsets today. That'd be exciting.
Yeah, we absolutely could have some upsets. It's going to be very exciting to watch. And without further ado, let's take it back to the casters and get into the first games.
Thanks so much, guys. Of course, Elliot Venruki Venzel will be joining us here at the caster desk throughout the day as well, so we can get all sorts of awesome commentary from him later on. But let's start thinking a little bit about this first match that we're going to see. It is going to be that original Gangstarr, which is the team from China, going up against SK Gaming, which was the team that won the European regionals.
Yep, so the Chinese all-star lineup going up against the European all-star lineup. Original Gangstarr have been favoring the Warrior, Warlock, Resto, Shaman composition in practice. However, talking to SK Gaming, it seems like they've been scrimming with a Warrior Mage Resto Shaman composition, something that you've basically never even see on ladder. So China could surprise us here. I know for a fact that SK Gaming are something like an 8-0 win rate though, so it may end up being a landslide. I certainly hope that it's not, because original Gangstarr is such a stacked lineup from China.
It really is. You know, if you've been following along in BlizzCons in the past, you do see a couple names that you recognize on this team. However, because of some travel issues, they weren't able to bring their full strength roster last year. So now they have all three players, and these are players who've been playing together for a long time. So it's awesome to see, and we'll have to see how well they can perform on the stage.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very, very important point, that last year several of these players from the Chinese team were here, but unfortunately one of their players was not able to make it, so they had to bring in like a last-minute sub. And they still did fairly well in the tournament, but they got knocked out kind of early. This year at full strength, I almost don't even know really what to expect out of them. However, we did get an opportunity to talk with both of these teams ahead of time and get a little bit on their thoughts. Let's go ahead and check out what these two teams have to say.
面对这次我们第一支挑战的队伍，我觉得我们会很有信心。
I know that we will beat original Gangstarrs 2-0. The fact that they are unknown and we didn't initially know what they're gonna run gave them a small advantage, but since today we know that they're most likely gonna run WLS, so that's not really a scary setup for us, so we should be okay against them.
他们这次比赛的主要阵容是 Turbo， 然后我们比较担心他们会上 LSD。
We can punish any team on the spot for any mistake done, so there's not much time for them to react.
不在乎他是不是SK 最好的战士。
We practice a lot, and I think we're like the best players by far in the world. Winning BlizzCon is the only thing that matters. That's the main goal.
All right, so that of course is our two teams, Original Gangstarr and SK Gaming. I really liked it. Han Baichuan was like, I don't care if they say that SK Gaming has the best warrior. Like, he knows, I'm the best warrior. Yeah. I'm the best one. We've been watching him in practice. He might actually be the best warrior.
Yeah, he definitely is the best warrior coming out of China to face off in the very first round against possibly the best warrior in Europe. This is going to be exciting.
Yeah, Europe versus China. I'm really excited to see it. I know that a lot of people really underestimated the Chinese team, and now after watching them play in practice, specifically Han Baichuan on warrior is just impressing everybody. It's so exciting to see. I mean, if the teams are ready, I would like to introduce you guys to the team of Original Gangstarr.
This is, of course, Original Gangstarr from China. You can see Yi Yang in the front there. Right next to him is Han Baichuan, followed up by Xiao Ji, and down at the end, team captain Dark Archon. These guys, again, we've been watching them play in practice, and just the sheer level, like, they've been playing primarily that warrior, warlock, shaman composition, and just their ability to win against comps that on the North American ladder, you'd say this should never happen. This should never work. Why is this working? This should never actually work out this way. They've been playing so incredibly well. But before we go on any further, we're going to go ahead and introduce our other game coming all the way from Europe. It is SK Gaming. Team SK Gaming coming all the way from Europe. They were our European champions, actually, taking that first place against the other one of the other European teams we have here, Skillcapped EU.
Yeah, that was an exciting match to end our European regionals and have these guys qualify and make it on to here. It'll be really interesting to see what compositions they're going to bring to the very first match, knowing that Original Gangstarrs can really only play, we've only seen them pull out those two comps so far in practice, but I gotta give it to their warrior. Watching his play style, he plays very, very offensive, but you know, you can see he always has that defensive moment. He uses a gateway to get back to his team. He's using his heroic leap defensively, but so he always has that battlefield presence, is always aware where the enemy team is, and if he has to play defensive and get back to his team.
Yeah, it's really the synergy of Original Gangstarr that carries them through their games. They play so well together. They're always in the right positions defensively as three, and then they push forward with Dark Archon and Han Baichuan as well to try and execute those kills later in the game. They're definitely taking advantage of positioning in their matchups, and if they are going to take a victory against SK Gaming's Turbo Cleave, I would say it's a miracle if they do. Maybe a 1% chance to actually win in this specific matchup, so it'd be awesome to see them do it.
Yeah, definitely. But at the same time, we've been saying this as we've been watching them in practice as well. They keep winning in situations where they really shouldn't win. So it's actually really tough to make a prediction here between these two teams, because we know that SK Gaming, they're the best in Europe. They are really, really good at this video game. But Original Gangstarr, like, I haven't seen them play as much. Just in the practice that we've been seeing so far is really the only exposure I've had to them as this team specifically, and they've been really, really impressive. So I'm really, really excited to see how this match turns out.
I definitely am, and you can see in past tournaments when some of the NA and EU teams, because they think both of those two regions think that they're the best region. You know, we see the trash talk on forums, but then when they come to these tournaments, normally they're like, okay, well, I have to play against, you know, one of the Asian teams first round, so it's kind of our bye, and then all of a sudden a Korean team comes out of nowhere with a PHDK and wins the entire tournament.
Yep.
So that you always have to pay attention to these teams. We saw them a lot of practice games being scouted, people standing behind computers kind of watching what was going on and stuff. So I am really excited to see these matches.
Yeah, the teams have been measuring the strengths of each other quite well, and Original Gangstarr, surprisingly enough, has actually been combating all of the Rogue Mage Resto Druid teams and actually taking quite a lot of games off them in practice. Unfortunately for them, the way that the bracket did end up, they're going to be facing their hardest matchup overall in the tournament. SK Gaming are going to be leading with that Turbo Cleave, and it's such a dominating comp against the Warrior Lock Shaman, which is why I think that they're in desperate mode where they're going to have to run the Warrior Mage Resto Shaman as we've seen them practicing. An unconventional comp nonetheless. Let's see how China is going to do.
Yeah, it is worth noting that we haven't actually gotten final confirmation just yet on exactly which compositions they're going to be playing. I do think that you're right that it will be that turbo cleave into that warrior, warlock, shaman. That's just what they've been playing most of the time, these two teams. However, we will have final confirmation of that here very, very shortly. Of course, the first map, like you said earlier, always going to be Nagrand Arena. After that, they do have that back and forth pick, and we will be following along with that as best as we possibly can once we get a little bit further on in this tournament. But yeah, Nagrand Arena, Warrior, Warlock, Shaman versus that Turbo Cleave, which is of course the Enhancement Shaman, the Arms Warrior, and the Resto Druid. So I kind of expect that's what we'll see,
well,
but it should still be a really good match.
We actually have it right now, so we will find out what these teams have selected right now. Again, it is going to be Nagrand Arena, and as you can see on your screen right there, oh, look at that. It is the Mage.
It is the Magus.
Yeah, we saw them play this a little bit yesterday, and we were kind of taken by surprise by it. This Mage, Warrior, Resto Shaman composition. Obviously, in previous years, we've seen a lot of Warrior, Mage, Druid be played fairly regularly. And so it was interesting to see them bringing out that Restoration Shaman. And again, it was one that they did surprisingly well with.
Yeah, the Resto Shaman is going to be passively buffing their damage, increasing their mastery level. So their burst is going to be really high. The important disability, though, of this composition is that the Resto Shaman does not have access to any instant crowd control, whether it be through stuns or spammable CC like Cyclone. So Yi Yang on Mage is going to be completely by himself to get those polymorphs. We saw him yesterday in some scrims fighting against the Korean team playing Feral Lock Shaman. He was doing quite well, able to get polymorphs even through the thick of the match. So let's see how well Swapsy and Joe actually can shut him down.
Yeah, one of the big things, like you were saying, is going to be that burst damage coming out of the Warrior and the Mage. In one of the matches that we saw during practice yesterday, it was just sudden tons of burst damage. Like, you cannot overstate the amount of burst damage that those two classes are capable to put out. They save up those 2 charges of Ice Nova, they get that sudden death proc available, and it's just execute, Ice Nova, execute, and that's 100% to 0 in like no time at all. It's inside a deep freeze. So I definitely think that SK Gaming is going to need to watch out for that. I feel like these guys, the SK Gaming team, these are top class players. They're going to be able to deal with that sort of thing, but it might catch them by surprise. They're going to know how to deal with it, but maybe they won't be prepared for it right in the half second that it actually happens.
Yeah, and it's a best-of-3 format, so any of those kind of random burst kills, that puts you so far behind. You're 1 game away from being defeated. And if any of these teams lose 2 series in a row, they're eliminated. They don't get to actually play on the BlizzCon stage. This is a reminder, this is the opening week to BlizzCon, so 2 teams are going to be eliminated throughout today and tomorrow. Original Gangstarr are definitely going to be competing to their best of their ability here, bringing out a bit of an unconventional comp with the Frost Mage, Arms Warrior, Resto Shaman. I can't really tell if it's desperation, as they have not been successful with the Warrior, Warlock, Resto Shaman comp, so they're just going to be subbing Yi Yang on out of desperation to try and make the game as interesting as possible or catch SK Gaming off guard.
Yeah, and just before we get into this game, the match is just now spinning up and we'll be getting in here very, very shortly. But real quick, we're going to take a look at a poll coming in through Twitter. We want to know, who do you think is going to win? Use that hashtag WoW Esports and tweet with the hashtag Gangstarr if you think that the Chinese team will win, or hashtag SK if you think that SK Gaming from Europe is going to win.
Yeah, but we're jumping into the game. We're 5 seconds away from starting the first match of BlizzCon. SK Gaming are going to be running that Turbo Cleave with Swapsy on Enhancement Shaman, Botar and Resto Druid, Joe Fernandez on Arms Warrior. We can see Yi Yang coming forward in Invisibility. Hai Banchuan does not care at all, just charging immediately onto Swapsy. Deep Freeze over onto Botar, trying to land that Ring of Frost. Nice Trinket Windshear out from Swapsy, breaking up the crowd control and slowing down the game.
And Yi Yang is trying to land those polymorphs out, but look at Botar shifting almost every single one, doing a great job. And look, they're going to get right on to that Shaman, but look at how Han Baichuan is immediately back onto the enemy warrior, forcing him into defensive during his recklessness. That's huge.
Yeah, Xiaoji doing a great job of trying to get out of line of sight over there. Unfortunately, does get caught into that full bash, which could lead Yi Yang into a little bit of trouble here. He does get the Earth Shield off onto him right as soon as he comes out of that crowd control. But now into the full fear, Yi Yang could be in a little trouble, but no, he's actually managed to get himself out of line of sight over here and tried to get a polymorph off. It looked like Joe Fernandez got a mass reflect up there, so was not able to get it off. But now Han Baichuan suddenly takes a big chunk of damage, down to 39% health. Looks like, again, he's going to be just fine. But this is the sort of back back and forth swaps that SK Gaming is making could put them in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, Xiaoji's been doing a good job there, turning off the Ascendants to top off his team, but now he's caught into the Shockwave. Both players connecting into execute range. Shockwave comes out from Hanbai just in the nick of time to save him. He's going to drop that Spear Link and stabilize his team, but how long can he keep this up? Botar down at 70% mana, actually tied with Xiaoji. Pressure onto Swapsy down at 50%. Botar spamming out the Genesis heals, doing a good job to pick him back up. A lot of pressure onto Yi Yang, down to 40% HP. Xiaoji trying to cast some healing surges there to top his team off. Bash over onto Han Baichuan, trying to use that heal there as well to pick himself back up. Pressure still onto Xiaoji, down at 40% HP. Into the charge stun now out from Joe. Good defensive polymorphs out from Yi Yang are going to keep Original Gangstarr in this game.
Yeah, Yang is having some problems landing the polymorphs onto the healer, which he really needs to do. That Iron Bar comes down to Swapsy, but they poly him right on it, as it looks like they might be going on Joe Fernandez at this point. They just need to get that crowd control out, which is really tough for Yi Yang right now.
Yeah, it's worth noting, though, that neither team has really had to blow too much in the way of defensive cooldowns. As I say that, Yi Yang gets super low, but still holding on to that ice block, has not had to use a single one just yet. Han Baichuan getting a little bit low out here. He may end up having to use his Die by the Sword, but no, once again, Xiaoji comes out with those heals, just keeping him up, and still no major defensive cooldowns have actually been used, aside from one Spirit Link earlier on, and excuse me, Xiaoji did just have to use his Trinket to be able to get some heals out, but the pressure on a Swapsy has forced out
Xiaoji!
Xiaoji!
He could just go down. He's into execute range. He gets locked, and then heal drops the Link barely in time. Han Baichuan with the triple Shockwave will save Original Gangstarr for a little bit longer, but how much still? Triple Fear now out from Han Baichuan as well. Xiaoji needs to start getting some hard casts off. Joe is right on his back, hunting him down. Deep Freeze over onto Botar. He did actually Trinket there. Now caught into a half polymorph. No Shamanistic Rage for Swapsy. Can Original Gangstarr turn it around? Botar is going to use the Iron Barker. Swapsy dips down to 40%. Recklessness comes out from Hanbai. They're going to cut through that. They're just trying to get a kill. Joe Fernandez popping his own Recklessness now to make a turnaround. Full Shockwave. No Trinket on Xiaoji. Hanbai as well, down at 28%. So much damage coming out from SK Gaming right now. Original Gangstarr are doing such a spectacular job just to stay alive.
They are, and SK Gaming was split there currently on Xiaoji and Han Baichuan. Maybe if they connected on the same target, they could have got a kill, as Han Baichuan is trying to dump some damage into Swapsy. Yi Yang is getting those Blink Deep's rings over and over onto him. This is what they need to capitalize on, but they need to follow up with CC onto Botar after this.
They have, however, forced the Shamanistic Rage out from Swapsy, which is going to be one less cooldown available. It's a little bit wild. Xiaoji caught into that stun yet again. Could be in a lot of trouble right here, but the polymorph comes out from Yi Yang, slowing down Joe Fernandez just a little bit, but it's not enough. And Xiaoji is going to go down, and that's going to be the first game here going to SK Gaming.
Wow, that was surprisingly close for those comps that we were looking at. One of the things that I saw Original Gangstarr kind of maybe lost the game because of it was they had an excellent CC chain onto Botar, and they were able to just try to DPS through that Shamanistic Rage that Swapsy had up, but they didn't have the follow-up crowd control.
Yeah, in this composition specifically, like I was saying with the rest of Sham, Yi Yang is on a solo mission to try and get those polymorphs, but despite that, I really thought this matchup was going to be a lot more one-sided than that. They did force the Shamanistic Rage, they forced the Iron Bark, they got through some trinkets. Maybe if Original Gangstarr can polish up their cross CC, use the Shockwaves at the same time as the Deep Freeze, that way they can allow Yi Yang to actually get the polymorphs off on cooldown, because it seemed like consistent crowd control was really the problem for Original Gangstarr, but nonetheless, a huge disadvantage in terms of composition, and they're still playing excellently. I'm looking forward to game number 2.
Yeah, just speaking to that a little bit, watching that match, it kind of felt like Original Gangstarr was on the back foot for most of that match, and realistically they were, but significantly less so than they really should have been. Like in this comp matchup, you kind of expect the Warrior and the Mage team to just sort of fall over, and that is not what happened at all. They have been doing an amazing job facing off against this very, very tough composition for them to actually deal with. And I think a big part of it is that what they're going to need to be able to turn this around, assuming that they stick with the same composition, they could end up switching over to that Warrior Warlock Shaman composition. But if they stick with the same composition, they're going to need to get those CCs off. They're going to need to catch Botar and Caster form and get a nice polymorph rotation going on him if they're going to actually be able to put any real serious pressure out. They did force cooldowns a couple times, but it wasn't a ton.
And actually, we do have a Windows 10 game DVR replay over with Jackson over at the analyst area.
Hey guys, what a great way to start off this tournament with the battle of the self-proclaimed best warriors in the world. We're going to take a quick look at this replay to break down the end of that game here. So one thing to mention real quick is that as soon as SK Gaming saw what comp Original Gangstarr locked in, I did spot a little smirk on Botar's face. So they were coming into this game pretty confident. I think they were given a little bit more of a challenge than they first expected. But one of the things that's pretty funny is that since we are in a live studio audience, we can hear Joe Fernandez as soon as he catches him in that shockwave, he says, he's dead. He gets polyed and re-polyed, but once he gets out of that, a little bit of extra damage from Swapsy brings Zhaoji into execute range, and Joe Fernandez takes care of the rest. So an awesome first match. I'm wondering what Original Gangstarr is going to need to do in order to actually bring themselves back from the brink of losing this first round matchup. I think that what they might want to try to do is put a little bit more pressure on the Resto Druid, because it's really hard for the Mage to land CC on his own when the Warrior is really the only one who's able to help him set things up. So in this next match, look for maybe some swaps to SK Gaming's Resto Druid. We're going to go ahead and send it back to the guys and get in this next match.
All right, thanks so much, Bajira. Yeah, definitely this next match is going to be a very, very important one. As we said earlier, this is a best-of-3 series. So Original Gangstarr needs to come back in this game and be able to, if they want to stage a comeback, this is the final game of the series if they actually end up losing. So it's going to be really important for them. However, they do have that sort of losing team advantage of being able to choose both the map and be able to counter comp after the SK Gaming team has declared their composition.
I don't think there's going to be any counter comping. I really think that SK Gaming are just going to stick to the Turbo Cleave. Both of the compositions that Original Gangstarr have available really just don't pose much of a threat to SK Gaming. Maybe they're going to substitute in their Warlock Dark Archon. He is the team leader. He's got some of the most tournament experience on their team, so maybe they're just going to allow all 3 players to play. I know that this team specifically likes to talk through every match. They're very professional with their setup as well, and you could see in that match, that should have been one side. That should have been a landslide. They should have walked all over them, but they weren't able to. Original Gangstarr put up a fight. They pushed back, and I would like to see them perhaps switch to the Warrior, Warlock, Resto, Shaman composition, as it would have appeared it was more practiced and well-versed in the practice area throughout the week.
Yeah, one of the things to note was I didn't see a single block forced out from the Mage whatsoever, and he was playing pretty offensively. There was a couple times when he was getting low when I would expect, like, okay, they're going to block, so it pulls the pressure off him so the Shaman can get free. But because SK Gaming was splitting a lot on both the Warrior and the Mage, or the Warrior and the Shaman, or the Mage and the Shaman, it kind of gave that Mage a little bit of defensive room to breathe where he didn't have to worry about relying on those blocks. So maybe he just needs to play even more offensive in that case.
Yep. Real quick, while we are getting these teams all squared up and ready to go, declaring the compositions, everything, we do have some little fun facts about Original Gangstarr that we can go ahead and show you guys. Again, all-star lineup from China. These guys have been competing in tournaments over there and just doing incredibly well year after year after year. But like we said earlier on in the broadcast, they had issues getting their entire team over here before. Zhaoji and Han Baichuan have both qualified and competed in BlizzCon before. And Dark Archon has actually also qualified for BlizzCon, but he was the one that was unable to make it previously, and he's the team captain. Like, when you don't have your team captain over here at actual BlizzCon, that's going to cause some problems. And there it is right on your screen. He qualified for the BlizzCon finals in both 2011 and 2014. This is the first that he's managed to actually secure that US visa.
Yeah, definitely very important for you to be able to have all of your players actually come and compete. It's just unfortunate, like I can't explain it enough, that this specific matchup is just so hard for the compositions that Original Gangstarr have available. If they're able to even take a game, they deserve some sort of prize for that.
Yeah, this is a really hard counter, basically, for both of their matchups. One of the things to note is, since we do have that 4-man roster, we actually have all 4 players up on the stage. So if they do have to swap a player out, the other team won't know by, like, oh, he's unplugging his computer and or unplugging his keyboard and standing up. All they have to do is turn on their monitor, and they're in and ready to play.
Yep. So we will be getting a final confirmation on that draft for you here as soon as possible, just to find out what map we're playing. And if there have actually been any sort of composition changes, I do kind of expect that they're going to want to go ahead and pull out Dark Archon for this next one. In fact, we actually have the ability to find that out right now as we head over to the draft screen to get some details on exactly what map has been chosen. They're going to Tiger's Peak. That's an we don't often see Tiger's Peak chosen that early. And in fact, they are going to be pulling out the Affliction Warlock. That's going to be Dark Archon playing the Affliction Warlock for Original Gangstarr. Same team once again, though, for SK Gaming, sticking with that Turbo Cleave with the Enhancement Shaman and the Arms Warrior.
I would have expected, actually, Blades Edge Arena if they were going to be switching back to the Warrior, Warlock, Resto Shaman.
Yeah, definitely.
Because often, as the Turbo Cleave in this specific matchup, you go after the Warlock's pet just constantly, and where on Blades Edge Arena, you can jump down, kite both the melee down, port back up, resummon your pet. You don't have to spend a soul shard for it. So it's interesting that they're actually going to go for Tiger's Peak Arena. I wouldn't say that this gives them a significant advantage unless they've got some Chinese secret that I don't know about. But I do appreciate that they're going back to their bread and butter Warrior Lock Shaman.
I do, and maybe it's they really like the gateway placements on Tiger's Peak or something, because you definitely can, the gateway is almost long enough to get from the little gazebo area back to the statue, so maybe they're thinking that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and much like on Blade's Edge, you can actually use those little gazebo areas, like you call them, to the side. You can actually port up to them. It's not quite as effective because oftentimes you can see over those edges and you're still in line of sight once you're up there, but it is kind of there, so
yeah,
you still a little bit have that.
Yeah, specifically you guys should want to keep an eye on Dark Archon, the Warlock. He's probably the best kiting Warlock that exists in the game at this moment, at least from seeing him. He survives the most ridiculous of situations completely by himself. Of course, he is backed up by Hen Baichuan as well. With all those well-timed shockwaves and defensive fears, the team is so good synergistically speaking, so it's nice to see them play their original comp here moving into game number 2. A bit unexpected going to Tiger's Peak, but I'm really curious to see how it plays out.
I am, and I'm glad they did switch that comp up. Even though it was closer than we expected, like we said, you definitely have to pull out something at this point, because it went well for them, just not as well as you need to in your opening round at BlizzCon.
Yep. Real quick, while this game is getting started here, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the results from that poll earlier. Wow, 94% saying SK Gaming is going to win this series. I mean, I think that's the safe bet. Like we were saying earlier, Original Gangstarr kind of up against the ropes here in terms of comp disagreements or composition matchup, but only 6% for Gangstarr.
To be honest, that's probably what the win rate is. It's probably 6% to 94%. So if we played 100 games,
people pulled up the stats on that one, and they're like, all right, let's coordinate.
That has to be what it is.
You have to vote for Original Gangstarr.
Yeah. But the teams are getting ready to start their second match here on Tiger's Peak. We've got Zhao Ji on Resto Shaman, Dark Archon on Affliction Warlock, Hen Baichuan on Arms Warrior. They're going up against SK Gaming, Turbo Cleave, Botar on Resto Druid, Joe Fernandez on Arms Warrior, and Swapsy on Enhancement Shaman. I'm curious to see if Original Gangstarr can pull back what should be a landslide victory for SK Gaming.
Yep, immediately Dark Archon getting that gateway out, like you said, goes almost the entire distance between the pillar and the little gazebo area, but Joe Fernandez wants none of that. He's immediately charging in there, trying to put some pressure out. Xiao Ji into that full fear. Dark Archon does get the Blood Horror up there for just a second, but he takes a little bit of damage, gets put into a very brief Cyclone, and he actually trinketed out of that Cyclone. That's an interesting choice.
He just wants to stay offensive right at the start. He really has to get his dots out. As you see, he's doing an okay job. You know, Joe Fernandez and Swapsy both dotted up as he refreshes full dots onto Swapsy too. But Botar is just healing straight through it.
It's interesting to see Hen Baichuan actually playing Bloodbath. He's going to be slowing both of the melee DPS quite frequently. You can see Dark Archon actually playing Mortal Coil. There's the Mortal Coil over onto Joe Fernandez. A bit of an unexpected target for that spell, as it is such a long cooldown. We see the Dark Soul out for Dark Archon, trying to build up some damage here. Swapsy's going to answer that with his Ascendance, trying to trade some damage back as the Shockwave lands onto 2. Dark Archon loading out those Drain Tools now as well. There's the full clone now out of the Shockwave onto Hen Baichuan as well. Well done from Botar and Swapsy. Good coordination thus far.
Yeah, and you were talking about the kiting ability earlier. They just kited Joe Fernandez through his entire Recklessness Bladestorm combo. Just got away from him, wasted both of those cooldowns pretty much entirely. Now jumping in over here onto Xiao Ji, gets a nice big chunk of damage onto him. Wow, Xiao Ji is just taking truckloads of damage right now, dipping down to about 20% health, but manages to get away without having to use any Spirit Link. Just goes dog form for a second over here behind the pillar. Han Baichuan, though, having to use his Die by the Sword.
Yeah, and we can see that they're just taking so much pressure at the moment. And with no trinket available, the next Shockwave out from Joe could potentially be the game. We see Hen Baichuan now with his Recklessness outputting quite a bit of pressure onto Botar as he dips down to half. Double Shockwave, it gets the double trinket out, but Zhao Ji is dipping so dangerously low and nobody was in the link except for Hen Baichuan. Dark Archon was not able to get back, and SK Gaming are going to take the series 2-0 as would be expected, but Original Gangstarr are not completely out of the tournament just yet.
Yeah, that was a rough match for them. Dark Archon not being able to get back into that Spirit Link range. They were doing a decent amount of job on damaging Botar at that point, but because he can play so far away from his Warrior and Enhanced Shaman, what a great job by SK Gaming in this series.
Yeah, and just to, I guess, sort of drive home the point a little bit more about just how much burst damage actually landed there and why it was so difficult for Original Gangstarr to respond to that. Joe Fernandez got off a 110k execute. that's a lot of damage. That's fairly significant amount of damage. That's a pretty big deal. So with that that big of an execute, as well as Swapsy putting out, Swapsy got a 54k lava lash. Like, this is a lot of burst damage that actually happened.
Even Botar threw out a 40k ferocious bite. So all three players are just saying, we're done. We want to move forward and just tear them apart, and they did do so in game number 2. Original Gangstarr do have a second chance to battle it out in Group A. They will fight the loser between Tempo Storm and Solari Gaming, to my understanding. I'm really excited to see if they can battle it back and stay in the tournament. If they lose the next series, they are eliminated from BlizzCon.
Yep, but before we go along any further, we do have Jackson over at the analyst station with the Windows 10 game DVR replay.
Hey guys, welcome back to the analyst station. So we did see SK take a 2-0 victory in that matchup, and we talked about WLS having a really tough time against TurboCleave, and I want to look at the replay, but also tell you a little bit why that's difficult for WLS to deal with. So one of the things about WLS is that they rely on the Warlock a lot for control and pressure, and one of the things that the TurboCleave can do is lock down the locks by not letting him cast, obviously, Tremoring Fears, grounding spells cast. Also, the Enhancement Shaman can dispel the Warlock's dots, and they can take a glyph that even heals their team while they do it. And one of the things that they can also do is kill just about anything on the team. What we're going to see here is a swap over to Zhao Ji and a drop down to an execute that we heard about before. But another thing to keep in mind is that just about every team that played against this Chinese WLS was really impressed with how mechanically skilled they were, along with the Koreans. So one of the things to look out for is that the Warlock was controlling his pet, and we talked about his kiting ability, but he's also protecting his pet. He had his pet all the way on the opposite side of the map. Joe jumped up and tried to kill the pet, and he instantly started resummoning one all the way across the map. So even though they lost this game right here, keep an eye on this Chinese team, because they're one to watch. We have an interview coming up with Joe Fernandez, but we're going to throw it back to the casters and get that all set up for you guys.
All right, thanks so much, Bajira. Yeah, definitely a difficult matchup for that Warrior Warlock Shaman composition going into there. And in that second match, you really saw why, just in terms of how much damage Xiaoji was taking in such a hurry there. It's very difficult for that composition to deal with. But that said, I do not think that we should count Original Gangstarr out of this tournament. Especially because they will have another chance. They will be facing off against the loser of, I believe you're right, it's Tempo Storm versus Solari Gaming. I believe is going to be the other matchup that they're going to be playing. That match will be played later, and the loser of that match will go up against Original Gangstarr. And depending on who actually comes out of that match, they actually still have a very, very good chance of making it out of this group. Yeah, definitely still have a chance to stay in it to win it for BlizzCon. It would be unfortunate if they did end up going down here, as they will not be competing next week at BlizzCon. So moving a little bit more into it, I can't help but feel that that went exactly the way that it was supposed to. I mean, speaking from practice, SK Gaming was just dominating them thus through every game, and Original Gangstarr have been putting up quite a good fight against a lot of the other teams. It's just unfortunate that they did get this bracket lineup, and we wish them the best of luck moving into the next series. Who do you think is going to come out ahead in this next series between, I believe, is Cloud9 and Korea's Do It For Fun?
This is going to be a tough one. Cloud9 is very good. Like, they are an incredible RMD, but that's all they have. So if the Koreans have the answer to the RMD, maybe they can take some rounds off it. Maybe they can 2-0 them with a surprise, you know, because they get the upper hand in the first round. If they found a way to dismantle this RMD, that's going to be the big thing about this match.
Yep, and we actually do have the ability to take a look at what some of the upcoming matches are going to be as we continue through the broadcast here throughout the rest of the day. It is going to be Do It For Fun versus Cloud9 coming up next. Later on, we will have Solari Gaming versus Tempo Storm, and then the final match will be Follow Esports versus Skill Capped EU, which is another one that I'm really, really excited to see how that match turns out.
Yeah, and if you guys want to tweet us, include the hashtag WoW Esports. This is the event of World of Warcraft every year. This is the biggest thing that you can be a part of. Tell your friends. It's starting today, and it's finishing tomorrow, and then progressing into next week as well. So there's so much Warcraft with such a huge amount of time to do it in. I'm so happy.
You know what I would love to see? Since we're not allowed to use add-ons, any players cannot use add-ons. We whitelist a bunch of scripts for them, kind of like anything that visually moves stuff around. We don't let them like create a trinket timer from their scripts and stuff like that. And we talk about this a bunch. You use your stopwatch a lot, actually, which is really cool. But I would love to see a time-lapse video from the beginning of the year till now of players' streams that compete here, and watch them as they shed the add-ons, like as it gets closer and closer, and then suddenly they have this bare screen, and it's a nice and clean interface, and not like the command center with a billion add-ons.
Yeah.
It'd be funny.
Yeah, that's actually really, someone should do that. We need to get it. We need to get a streamer on that.
Somebody's working on it right now.
Yeah, get on that right away. Anyway, before we continue on any further, we do have Jackson over once again at the analyst station for our winners interview.
Hey guys, I am joined by my warrior brother and captain of the victorious SK Gaming. So just to have a little fun wrinkle about this tournament, you guys won your first match, which means you're definitely going to be playing on the BlizzCon stage. How does that feel?
It feels really good. We really just wanted to get our match over and out of the way with, and so happy to finally be at BlizzCon.
Awesome. So one of the things that we saw in our notes about your team is that Botar is your defensive shot caller, but it does seem, especially in the games, we can hear you, yelling out which target to go on, who's dead. That was a lot of fun to hear. Are you what you would consider the offensive shot caller for your team?
I think we usually discuss together whether we can connect to a target or not. Both of us usually make the shots, and then we connect with each other appropriately.
Awesome. So one of the interesting things is, you're playing against the self-proclaimed best warrior in the world there. And one of the decisions that he made that sort of caught me off guard was the Bloodbath talent. You don't take Bladestorm, you don't take Avatar, instead you go with Bloodbath. That's not a talent choice that we usually see either on North America or EU. Did you think that was designed as a peel attempt, or do you think that what are the merits of Bloodbath there?
Yeah, I think they mainly wanted that to appeal the DPS mainly, but unfortunately it doesn't really. They lose a lot of pressure from that as well, so I don't think it was a great choice, but they tried out because we were beating them a lot in the War games, so they just wanted to see if that could work.
Awesome. So you handled original Gangstarr. Are there any teams moving forward in the tournament that you actually look forward to facing?
I would say we're looking forward to fight Jamili if they make it through.
Awesome. Well, this has been Joe Fernandez. He's moving on to the next round. Definitely going to be playing at the BlizzCon stage. Congratulations. We're going to have more arena for you guys right after this short break.
Being the only team with 3 people on it, a lot of people see it as a disadvantage. I mean, we only have 1 comp we can play, but I think it really boosts the synergy though between all the players. That's all we play, so we know RMD inside and out.
We all understand the comp enough and understand what's good to do, that if someone mentions something we weren't thinking of, we generally instantly know if we should be doing that.
I'm really proud of how we all get along together first of all, and how our CC in game is really good. When we're on point, it's just there's almost nothing the other team can do. And when I've watched scrims of the other RMDs play, it seems we can do a lot more insane CC than them. So definitely makes me feel really good about my partners. I'm playing with the right people.
It's not so much about regions. It's just that our RMD is the best out of everyone.